Good afternoon YouTube and anyone else watching this video. My name is Ian and I'm from Coolice Charge Case and Power Supplies. For those that don't know me, I produce custom charge cases for the radio control and UAV market, as well as FPV racers and model car racers even as well. If you're a model car racer and you would like a charge case, please contact me. Anyway, onto the process of this video, or the reason behind this video. As some of you have gathered, my subscribers potentially so far, I produce the odd video every now and then, obviously to highlight a new case I've built, and in this case I have one to show you. A little bit different, this one. Carries on the same sort of flavours normally as the past cases, whereby you've got the lower deck and the upper deck built into the case. The lower deck in this case obviously houses a 48 volt 2000 watt power supply, which is then powering a Revolectrix PL8 DUO, a very capable charger and very powerful charger, so it's quite nice then to have the 48 volts going to it. It works quite well and obviously fits in quite nice in this case as well, and the customer's happy with it, so that's what we've gone with. The lead build, he wanted a storage compartment, so that's followed on from the previous case I built, which is obviously video in my list as well, whereby we've got a storage door in it, and we've got obviously a connectors as well connected to it. In this case we've got a small 12 volt power supply going into it, or mounted behind it, so that allows the customer then to use a lower voltage 12 volt power supply, so obviously charges receiver packs and everything else, and also at the same time it gives us 12 volts then to power a little Arduino board with a little MOSFET controller, because again this customer wanted a logo in his case. He wanted something a little bit different. He's got a nickname, so I wanted to do something a little bit different with it to make it stand out with what the nickname is, and when you see it in the later video, or the video that will tag onto this one, you'll see the reasons why and the reasons why I've done it. And I think it's worked out really well. Now, I wanted to say a little bit about this logo actually, because it's been made up again with acrylic, so I've used the laser cutter to produce it. But it's made up of 3 layers, so I've teamed up with 3 layers of 2mm acrylic, and I've basically then created almost like an animation, or that was the plan anyway, to create a basic animation, and you can almost liken it to a flick book. So perhaps those of you that remember when you were a kid, or you've got kids now even and you've done it, you get a little book and you draw a stick man in the corner on the run page, then you turn the page over and you draw the same stick man again, but you draw it slightly different. And you do this page after page after page, and slowly but steadily, as you then get to the end and you then pick the book up and flick the corner, you create an animation. So as you flick the pages, the little stick man appears to move. Now that's pretty much the same sort of method I've used here, if you like. So I've created an upper layer, I've created a second layer then with something a bit different on it, and then I've created a third layer then that is slightly different to the second, so that as I then turn the lights on and off at different times and get them to fade in, fade out on strobe, again that's where the Arduino comes in for the controlling side of things. Then it looks like, or the plan is to make it look like the logo is shaking. Now the reason I say shaking is that when you see the logo you'll realise why I wanted it to look like it shakes. So I'm quite pleased with it actually. I kept it a secret to start with. The customer said he wanted his name in it in acrylic. My brain then, I'm one of those people that I start to think about, oh, how can I do this? How can I do that? What can I do? What can I make it look a bit different? Can I make it stand out? Can I make it different? Can I make it something that people will look to and go, wow, that looks good, it's done well? And then also then in time then, can I then use it even better? Which I will do as time goes by, and potentially I get asked to do it, I'll reproduce it and it'll be done in different ways. So that's worked out quite well. I'm quite pleased with it, so I think when you see it you'll be quite pleased as well, and it'll be nice to hear in your comments. Please leave me a comment and I'll appreciate it. So without further ado, because I'm not the most photogenic unfortunately, and I'm also struggling to keep my eyes on the camera on the front of my phone rather than watch myself in the screen and see just how bad this video could go, I'm going to finish this here, and I look forward to your comments. So let's go and show you the case. Sorry YouTube, sorry I had to run off for that. That was the postman. One of the wheels was broken on the bottom of my swivel chair, so I need some more wheels. But anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, I was talking about the logo. So basically what I've done, I've taken 3 pieces of 2mm acrylic, and on each of them then I've lasered a different image, or the one image I wanted, but then created ripples, if you like. I wanted to create the vision of a logo that looked that it was shaking, and when you actually see the logo you will see the reasons why behind that. So what I did, obviously I created the text, I laser etched that then on the top layer excuse me. I then created then the ripples, or should I say the first set of ripples on the second layer of acrylic. I then created another set of ripples then on the third layer of acrylic, then slightly further out. So basically then I can then use a controller, which in this case is an Arduino, to turn on lights, the lighting on the edge lit parts of the acrylic in sequence, and control them then to do something, to dance around, to jiggle about a little bit, to give the illusion that in this case the text was shaking. That was the whole plan of it, and I think it's turned out quite well. It's the first time I've tried it, so it was obviously a good learning curve. I had my electronics wizard, the guy behind the ice meter. He created me some nice little custom PCBs so that I can use obviously the small surface mount LEDs to create the effect that I wanted to, so it's nice and compact, it's nice and neat. Though that sort of thing, when it comes to it, I have taken photographs obviously, and I've got photographs here. I will obviously update my website www.coolice.co.uk. obviously on the charge cases I will add the photographs to it, and of course my Facebook page as well, and potentially some of the forums, helicopter forums and everything else, so you can see that in a little bit more detail if you wanted to from there. So what that has allowed me to do then basically is like animate an image, if you want to put it that way, and that's what I've done. And touch wood, I'm looking at it now, it's working really nice. I'm quite pleased with it. It's the first time I've done it. It looks good. The customer's certainly going to be happy. He's liked the initial images that I've showed him, kind of thing, leading up to the final one. Obviously to start with I didn't let him know exactly what I was going to try. I wanted to try it first, see how it would work, and then obviously start showing obviously temporary ones or prototype ones if you like from that. So I'm quite pleased so far, and hopefully you guys will like it too and say, yeah, we like that, Ian. Can't wait till you perhaps use that same technique with something else. It'll be interesting to try it again, so I'm looking forward to it. So without further ado, because obviously I'm not necessarily that photogenic, I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to show you this new case. So let's turn it around, and here we go. It's quite stealthy, the bottom deck. It's not too busy, this one. It's been kept quite minimalistic. So this guy, he wanted some form of meter, if you like, to tell him, you know, what was going on with the power supply. So what I've done there, it looks very similar to the ice meter, but it's not an ice meter in this case because we're not need it. Let's turn my light on a minute. There we go. So what I've done, I've taken a watt meter, I've stripped it apart, I've created a 3D printed bezel or holder, if you want to call it that. I've also put in, again, a piece of 2mm acrylic there, so that you're not, if you actually touch that, you're not actually touching the little LCD screen itself. It's a piece of acrylic. And then behind that then is the watt meter then bolted to the back of that 3D printed unit there, or holder there. And that then in itself is bolted to the underside of the deck. Again, this charge case is using my usual 10mm polypropylene deck, so I have the ability then to bolt things to it quite nicely, which is good. So that's basically then, and it cycles through, so obviously there's no real current or amps being pulled at the moment, so the unit's obviously just, it'll cycle through, so it'll tell you live how many amps are being pulled from the power supply. That's the current voltage that's coming out the power supply, 48.9 I've set it to, but 0.85. So that'll be quite a nice visual indication of how much power is being pulled by the charger when in use. So that's quite good. So that's quite handy. It's obviously recessed into the deck, so it looks quite good. Carbon fibre vinyl covering, and again, of course, everyone likes carbon. We all like the genuine, real carbon, if you like, but real carbon is really expensive, and this is the next best thing. And I think this particular vinyl actually looks quite good. There are so many different makes, from cheap to expensive ones, that I've tried a few of them now, and touch wood, I think this one appears to be quite nice. It goes down quite well, it's got the air release, so it works quite well. Cooling fans, I've stuck with the 7530, I think they are radial fans on this one. The airflow is quite nice. They're running now, you can probably just about hear them, and not very well perhaps, because you can probably hear my 3D printer going more in the background, so that's printing more brackets. I've got 20 different brackets to print, so that's currently going pretty much all through the day. I won't leave it through the night. So I've got 2 cooling fans, and again, they're pulling air out, so if I put my hand over it I can feel the air out. In all my cases I'd much prefer to have obviously the vent slots along the front if I can, or I have a couple of times I have done it up the sides, but I do prefer to obviously pull air in through the front, past the power supply, past and through the charger as need be, and then literally just be pulled out the back, rather than force air in to create a vacuum inside it. We don't need to create vacuum in there, we need to just draw the heat out. So I'd rather do that, and that's the way I choose to do it, and touch wood, so far it has served me well. So that's the lower deck. As you can see, cable chain, I've used my usual cable chain link between the top and the bottom lower deck. Again, I think it looks quite neat, it works well, it's quite pretty, it keeps the wire safe in there. This one's a little bit different. This one hasn't got low voltage going through it, that's why you see the one single black cable there, because that is actually taking AC voltage from the lower half of the case, obviously input, which I'll show you now. This one then is a Super X user. I'll show you the empty connectors on the other side there, that'll show a bit more, but basically then there's a 3D printed holder there to hold the Super X connector on the bottom there, so you can connect his batteries or balance boards directly to it. And then it's got my usual PL6 PL8 Revolectrix adapter board then mounted into it as well at the top, so it's got the usual MPA connector to suit the MPA board, which is the JST not XH, I think it's JST PA connector from memory. And then above it then it's got the usual JST XH, again in the 9 pin, the matching 9 pin, so you can still use the PL8, so you can use these connectors on the PL8s. But then it allows the use of obviously the cheaper balance boards if you've got those in your arsenal or whatever and you want to use them. Power input, you can see. I wonder if I can bring some light over. Yep, I can. That's the C20 connector. So obviously you can tell it's a much more beefier connector. I've got one over there with the usual one, but that's obviously a much bigger and much more capable. This one then as well, I created a 3D bezel again for it. So it just made it nice. The connector then sits within the bezel, and then the whole thing gets screwed to the side of the case. It just finishes it off rather than the connector just being stuck there. I thought or felt actually that kind of layout fitted in better than with the 3D printed battery connection side of things, charger connections on the side. I thought it just kept the theme going, and touch wood, it's working well. I'm quite pleased with that. If I bring my light round on the other side, you can see it a bit better. There we go. So that shows a little bit better what's going on there with a 3D printed connector holder, if you like. Again, I've got images of the whole thing from the front, the side, the left, the right, so people can see obviously how I've done that and see how well it's worked out. Really, I'm quite pleased with that. Obviously they're available for myself. If you would like something like this, I can obviously supply them, not a problem. Pretty much everything that you see on my videos I can supply, so I can obviously produce cases. Oh, I didn't want to show you the logo yet, so we'll bring it back down. I can obviously produce complete cases as you've seen, or I can produce you a kit of parts so you can put it together yourself and obviously save a little bit of money that way. It's entirely up to you. Coolice Charge Cases and power supplies, we're flexible, we're very flexible, so small cases, large cases, give us a shout. But anyway, back to this case. So let me turn the light off. I'm not going to, I'm going to wait. The logo's just doing its thing, so I'm going to wait until it's cycled through and then go back up. So we'll hold it there for a minute. You can see it. It's going to do its flashing thing and then go off. Right, and here we go. So we've got the green layer fading in. That fades out. We've got a red layer fading in. Here it comes. Oh! I quite like that. So this is for a guy, George Jones in the UK, and apparently his nickname is Lord Shaky Jones. So we had a few ideas. As you can tell with the video, it's very difficult to catch the light nicely, so what with the reflections on everything. See if I can go a bit closer. There we go. So that's what he wanted. He wanted something incorporated in his case, so this was the bit. So that's the middle layer on the green, that's the third layer, the rear layer on the red, and then they're both flashing, come on, and then go off, and the cycle repeats. So we'll have the middle green layer first, obviously the white, so the main text, which is obviously glowing white, which is the frosted laser etched logo, if you like. That is obviously powered, or that is lit up by white LEDs, and then you've got the green on the middle layer and then red on the back. And there's obviously a little Arduino with some programming on there. That was a little bit of a learning curve, but that can also be changed too. So let's pan back out again. And as you can see, there you go. That's where it gets a bit difficult with the logo to try and see it. But so that's the upper deck. Basically keeps the same sort of thing. Obviously, so we've got the usual obligatory USB charge ports there, twin USB charge ports. The other side, the little rubber cap is standing up. That's because that's just a cigarette lighter socket one. There should be a little USB charge port adapter in there that obviously you can take in and out to use, but I need to order another one, so that would obviously hold itself in, but it's not at the moment. Next to that, we've got an air inlet slot, because behind here is another power supply. It's only a small one. It's just a small 12 volt, I think it's 300 watt from memory, or 350 watt. Hence the cutout then to suit where the fan is. So the extractor fan for that then to obviously pull. So I had to put some form of vent in there, because even though there is a tiny gap around the outside, it's obviously very restrictive. So I've put a little grill in there with some metal mesh that I've sprayed black so it looks good. So then that allows any air to be drawn in through the power supply and then out via its own fan then, and then of course then I've replicated then the cutouts again in the 10mm thick polypropylene deck. So the power supply is then held. I've got two brackets, again they'll be seen in the photographs I've taken obviously of the build, so that holds that in place. That does two things. One, provides power then out on the positive and negative pins up here. Again, the customer requested that he wanted to be able to use a smaller charger, a 12 volt capable one, potentially for receiver packs and so on and so forth. That's one of the drawbacks, unfortunately, with the using the 48 volt supply. It's great for the big high power chargers, but then the smaller chargers that can only take maybe 12 volts or 25 volts at the most, you can't then power them from this. Now there are buck converters available, so you can take the 40, 50, 60 volts in and convert it down into a more usable voltage, but they're very inefficient and they create heat in order to obviously drop 60, 50 volts down to 25 or 12 volts. They have to obviously switch on very quickly, and they produce heat in doing so with their MOSFETs and their switching regulators and everything else. So in order to avoid that, you've got a couple of options. You can either not have a lower voltage, or in this case add a small power supply, which is what we've done here, and it works good. So not only then can we power a small charger if need be, but in this case then I've also got it powering the little Arduino and its little control board behind there as well to do the fancy things with the light. So I haven't had to mess around or anything like that. And of course then the eagle-eyed among you can see obviously the very faint line, because obviously I cut these as two individual pieces. And touch wood, actually, I've got the line really quite nice. It's always worry in case I get it too tight, but it's just right. So if I push the pressure there, because it's a push release, that's the storage. And then of course then you can see the lid there, so you can just about see the colours flashing in and out. So we've got a little plate at the back there, which is laminated acrylic actually, so it's black with a brushed silver effect on the other side. I messed around with a couple of different colours to obviously go behind the logo, and it turned out that certain colours, more especially if they were touching the back of the acrylic, because obviously being a vinyl graphics person as well, I applied vinyl graphics to the last layer thinking to blank it off that way, but it appeared to wash out the laser etching on the last layer, so that didn't work. So I've gone a little bit deeper on the recess for the logo to go into this 10mm thick panel, and then that's created then a little 0.5 millimeter gap between this panel and the logo acrylic on the other side of it, should I say. Sorry. So while it does still wash out the red a little bit, it's not as bad as what it could be, which is good. So it's worked quite well. As you can see, the logo is obviously still going. Yeah, it looks quite nice. I'm quite pleased with this one. It'd be nice to try it again, and obviously then again I've got photos of this mechanism being made and stuff, and I've got 3 little hinges. I use small hinges there, so they're relatively hidden, and then I've created a JST connector there, so if worse comes to worse I can obviously disconnect the 3 main input wires into the LED unit, and obviously do any repairs or change any LEDs on there in the future if need be. Click it back in, and there we go. So obviously now that's just bring that away from the wall a little bit more so I don't touch it. Turn the light off. Obviously that's just sitting there quite idle at the moment. Like I said, I had a little 3S pack that I used to power the little Dremel and what have you, and then I realised last night it was down to 25%, so that's definitely well below storage voltage, so I thought I would put it on charge with this today to test it, which is what I've done. So that's just sitting there nice with the voltage. Let's come back up a bit. Got the cutouts then for the usual PL8 DUO that is sat behind there. Quite nice. A little bit different cutout this time. Again, the customer was a bit conscious of, I just normally have like the rectangular cutout with rounded corners on the inside, and he said, oh, can we make sure that there's perhaps just a little bit more room to make sure my fingers and thumbs or whatever I want to put in there reach the buttons nicely, because he hasn't gone the whole hog yet and gone with a bump controller there, so he needs access to the buttons, which is more than good enough. You can control the charger nicely from them. So we've gone for a cutout that's a little bit bigger, and it looks quite nice actually. It's actually turned out really nice. That'll be something then that'll be offered to future customers if that's what they want. One last look at the case, so then we come up. The logo. It's very difficult to get the cameras to focus on them. What looks good in your eyes is very difficult to capture on video. But that looks quite good. So yeah. So anyway, I'd like to say goodbye for now. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to those who have subscribed to me to see my latest charge case creations, and thank you to those who will subscribe to me to see what I come out with. And if you need a custom charge case built, you want good prices, you want good quality, give me a shout. Ian at Coolice Charge Cases and Power Supplies. Come find me and let's have a chat. Thank you very much. Bye bye.